bookshop of Beverly Farms.
Howdy, everybody. It's Sam Fightful, your host of John Updike's Ghost, your favorite little podcast about reading, writing, literature, bookstores, having parties, and shivering coldly by the fire. I am joined, as always, by my sister, the co-host of the podcast and the co-owner of the bookshop in Beverly Farms, was just celebrated its 5th birthday in rousing fashion, Miss Hannah Harlow. How are you doing today, Hannah?
All partied out. It
All
was
partied.
just such a rager that we had.
I was a
we
rager.
We
Come
did
on
have
now.
a very nice party a couple nights ago to celebrate our 5th anniversary of owning the store, and I thought it went very well.
I thought it went very well. I bought slightly too many beverages, but that's
Yes.
okay.
Better to have too many than too few.
You don't want to run out. Like, you can't just have no beverages. That would be bad.
I ordered a slightly too large cake. But
Not really.
again,
No, because no. I object to that. If we had only had the half sheet, we would have
it
run
was
out of
so
cake.
sad.
We would have
yeah.
had zero cake for Rob when he came in at the end. Can you imagine
Right.
if he didn't get cake?
I cannot.
Terrible. Make sure you go on to our Instagram and or Facebook, whichever poisonous valley you prefer, to see all of the pictures from the party. There are lots of pictures, including people holding up the rabbit bookstore cat cutout, which I very much enjoyed, which was a brilliant innovation by Hannah.
Thank you. My family was skeptical when I was talking about it. I said, I have this idea. And they were like, that's ridiculous. And I said, that's the point.
Yes, exactly. Come on now.
Yes, Rabbit the bookstore cat doesn't actually like being in the bookstore. So, this is the next best thing. You can get a little photo op with a photo of Rabbit.
I feel like we need to make sure that it is available at all times. And potentially, there should be days where if you take a picture with Rabbit the bookstore cat cutout at the cash register, you get like 2% off your purchase or something.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Work on the details.
We'll work on the details. Anyway, it has been 5 glorious years, and we've been reading books the whole time. But I only read just the one book this week. On my agenda is, to be fair, I started The Missing of Claire de Lune like at the end of last week. So I still had like 250 pages of that book, which was a bit of a brick.
You talked about that a little too soon.
Right. I probably should have saved it. But I was so excited about finding it in Sherman's. And so then I transitioned from that relative brick to, the Murakami is not that long. It's only like 450 pages.
It looks long.
It feels long. There's been a number of occasions where I was like, how is there this much left in this book? I don't understand. I've been reading it. It's like walking in a desert, and you're like, I'm just going to get over this sand dune, and there's going to be something on the other side, and then there's just more sand dunes. And so we'll talk about that, but that's the only book I have on my agenda.
So you're talking about the Murakami today?
Yes.
Okay.
I am. That's the one I got.
I mean, that's fair. That counts as more than one book, I think.
Yes, I have lots to say about it.
Yeah. Okay, great. I have 3. The first is The Harder I Fight, The More I Love You by Nico Case, memoir.
Yes.
And then
I have
branching
out, and that's my territory.
I know. I did feel like I kind of stepped on your toes a little bit.
All right, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah. And then I have 2. So I kind of went the other route. I have 2 like super breezy books that I read very quickly. The Collaborators by Michael Idov and Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros.
You read The Fourth Wing. Let's start with that. Because that I love books about dragons. I love books about fantasy. I love, all the kinds of stuff like that.
I suspected that I would greatly enjoy it.
Right.
And so I had been sort of saving it for like a vacation reading. I always think, and maybe we've talked about this on the pod before, that the time that we discovered Philip Pullman when we were we were in Turks and Caicos on a family vacation, and you brought the Philip Pullmans, and you were like, oh my God. And that was kind of like the ultimate vacation reading experience of just like, I am so into these books. We have 3 of them. I'm on a freaking hammock in paradise. Like there was nothing, it was like with nothing to do. I didn't have kids yet. You had a baby.
That's right.
Know.
Yeah.
I had 0 responsibilities in the world like that. I sort of thought like, you know what? I feel like Fourth Wing could be almost like that of like
really
vacation reading.
Okay.
Right? Just like the ultimate whatever.
It's that good.
Oh, I'm not saying it was that good.
I was about to say, really?
No.
It could be that. It could be that.
It could be. In my head, it could be that.
Right.
It didn't quite live up to expectation. I maybe, put too much pressure on it.
I was about to say, okay.
But is really enjoyable. And it is the type of book that just sucks you in and doesn't let go. Like you have to finish it, right? You have to find out what happens. While also being on some levels just absolutely ridiculous.
Wait, so I don't even know. Is Fourth Wing like the 4th in a series? Is it the first in a series?
It is the first.
Okay.
It's the first
new
in the series.
Thing.
It is in the group, the military grouping that they're in. So they're dragon riders. Right. And they're at this dragon riding school, right? They're
and the Fourth Wing is like the 4th Squadron or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So the main character's named Violet, and she does not want to be at the school. And so you meet her as she's going in. She was supposed to be a scribe. But her mom is the general and was like, no, we're all riders. You're going to be a rider. Yeah. So she is greatly unprepared because she had been training to be she'd been prepping to go and be a scribe.
I just want to be a small scribe and you're making me fight.
Yes. So the thing about the book is it is a constant adrenaline rush because it's every situation, every page is a live or die moment.
Yeah, we got to panic. I'm going to fall off. Someone's going to hit me with fire. Yes. Lots of bad things.
It is totally fine for other students to murder each other. Oh. So, she comes in with, a target on her back because her mom is the, general.
Right. So a little deadly education vibe there.
Yes, it is deadly education. And it's, just to get into the school, you have to, cross this parapet. That's the initial thing. You can fall
can you
and
even get in here? Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole thing is just okay, we're winnowing out the weakest so that only the strongest survive. So
and it's some sort of metaphor for the Ivy Leagues or something.
I don't think I've thought that metaphor through that you're throwing at me. I'm not sure.
It's I always thought that's what, because Naomi went to Yale, right? So I always thought of deadly education as this metaphor for the Ivy Leagues where
okay, maybe
it's a big giant poison place and everybody's out to get you all the time. And,
I could see that for the deadly education books. In this case, that's not where my mind went. So the part that gets a tiny bit ridiculous is just layered on top of what is just a really enjoyable fantasy with war and battles and dragons and magic is just
we're also going to bang.
Everybody's horny all the time. So you're in this life or death moment where you're I'm about to die. But man, that guy is so hot. And
so
let's talk about
cute.
The ripped muscles happening right now. So it's just a little.
That's what it drives me crazy. That's my least favorite thing.
It's just a little amusing, but I also think it lightens things up a little bit where it's just right. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, even though it's oh my God, she could die at any moment. You're well, I know there's a third book coming out and she's narrating
she's not going to die.
I'm not really that scared that she's going to die. You're never actually worried for her life. Which
and it's first
detracts.
Person. It's I. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it detracts a little bit from, my
you're pretty
concerns.
Fairly confident she's going to make it through.
Yes, but at the same time, it's I could not put it down.
It's harrowing.
It is.
Why is it so
It's fun.
anticipated though? Like, why was it like such a big book? I don't understand. Like, she's just the big author.
I really don't know how. I mean, she'd written some other books before, but never. I mean, she was kind of the first book in this new imprint.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they just did a really good job of like tapping into this kind of burgeoning audience for romantasy.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
somehow they launched it so that it was like immediately a bestseller.
Yeah, like I just couldn't. I kept looking. I was like, why am I supposed to like know about this book? Like, I don't really know this author that much. I think the graphic design is atrocious. Like,
For the covers?
Yeah, it just looks like really amateurish to me. Like, as though like they're purposely aiming it down market or something. Like, I don't know. There's like, and like, it's one of those books where they, in the like catalog, there's not an actual photo. It's like the book is like slightly open and like standing on its spine or whatever. They have to show
you that it has sprayed edges.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. The whole thing, like, are they trying to sell this on, an infomercial or something? Like, it just doesn't look like I don't know. It's like anti-cool.
I don't know. I actually really like the paperback. So the first book's only in paperback. The other two are still in hardcover. The third book just came out in January and, was like immediately.
Right. Yeah.
Big.
What's the third
big,
one called?
Onyx Storm.
Onyx Storm. That's right. Like, the cover of that one is like, what is this? It's like
So the paperback of Fourth Wing has dragons sprayed onto the spine. I actually think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, onto the edges, not the spine.
Yeah, but it's like it's like a TikTok book or whatever. So maybe it's like
it is a TikTok book,
Gen Z style or something.
Yeah. So the thing though that bothers me about it is that like it kind of ruins you for other books. Like that adrenaline rush is just unsustainable, and so you go into some other book being like, gosh, it's kind of boring. Like, I just think I can see why people just read in this category and keep reading in this category and don't break out much, because I think there's something about the way it just like riles you up that
right.
You go to other books and you're just like, I could be all riled up and I'm not.
Well, I can see that. So that is a very good transition to the Murakami.
Okay.
Because it is the anti of all of that, obviously, right? Yes, like,
right.
Murakami's slow. I knew it was going to be slow. I can't decide if he's become a caricature of himself, if he's like leaning into the criticisms of himself, like he's kind of trolling us a little bit, because it's like every Murakami novel in this novel, right? And so maybe that's just every Murakami novel is every Murakami novel, and I'm just more aware of it now because he's kind of had this backlash of people who just kind of mock him all the time online, right. Especially, but, nothing happens, which I'm fine with, right? Like I don't need something to happen. Like part of what I like about Murakami is like, it's contemplative, it's philosophical, it's absurdist, it's surreal. Like I can get down with all of that stuff. Right. But
someone's usually on a journey, right? Like,
yeah, and they're moving through. There's sort of a guy on a journey here, right? Like we got like a main character who is, kind of a Murakami avatar. He's this, 45-year-old Japanese man who's an ordinary guy with an ordinary life, who had an ordinary family. One of my favorite things about Murakami is he like has this way of writing that I think a lot of Japanese authors sort of, it's either something about the way Japanese translates into English, or it's like a literary style, which I've never really been able to sort of uncouple, not knowing, exactly what goes on, but like just lots of short declarative sentences, lots of like, it's the anti Fourth Wing, and like nothing is a big deal. Everything is very normal. And he just describes like, a whole paragraph on making tea, or a whole paragraph on how the snow was falling down, or it was cold. But this book, it's like he's leaning into all that. There's like so much repetition to the point where like, so all the chapters are, 2-3 pages, maybe 4 pages or whatever. And often the chapter will end with a character speaking, and then he opens the next chapter by repeating that line.
Oh.
But like for no real reason.
Yeah.
Like there's no context switch. There's no, it's just you read that line a second time when you turn the page, and you're like, okay, like I remembered it from last time. So why are we doing it again?
I just read it 10 seconds ago.
Yeah. And like he'll just repeat like things that he's already told you, like he'll, just like the scene where, I was sitting by the swings with my girlfriend, ba 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 ba, and it's like, it's almost like the scene didn't move forward there. I didn't learn anything more about the scene. It wasn't changed in the context. I just now heard it again, like there's like these, so, and the plot, such as it is, but again, he leans into all things. So it starts with the guy I'm talking about starts as a 17-year-old boy who's dating a 16-year-old girl. So there's like all of this, like, teenage, infatuation with the teenage girl, there's like a weird, like sex scene where not a sex scene, like he gets an imagined sex scene on the train, so it's like, leans into the whole, criticism of Kafka on the Shore, like these weird, boy fantasies or whatever, and the girl just ghosts him out of nowhere, right? He doesn't know why. She stops writing him letters, can't find her. She's not at the address, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes about the rest of his life. And he and this girl, one of the things that they love to do is talk about this imaginary city where she would say her real self was, and they would just describe this imaginary city. And then lo and behold, he winds up in the imaginary city, and then he escapes from the imaginary city, and then he meets other people who want to go to the imaginary city, and there's a ghost, and there's a cat, and at like one point, like it's just like so trolling. He's like, and I did have a job at a record store once, and then blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, there's a record store, amazing.
Right. Have we made any spaghetti yet?
He just made spaghetti. Yeah. Yes, he just. And I was just like, oh my God, like we're having spaghetti. Are you serious? And it's like every trope. And he just like, he puts them in there. There's it doesn't have to be spaghetti. Doesn't have to be working in a record shop. Doesn't have to be listening to jazz.
Doesn't have to be a cat.
There's a cat. And it's like, and I'm just like, are you fucking with me? Or like, are you saying something? Or, because he's got to be conscious of it at this point,
Right.
But, maybe that's just Murakami's just going to stick with this is what I do. I play bluegrass music. He writes about cats at record stores. Like that's what you get, But I like when the record store thing happened, I laughed out loud. I was like, what? Like there was no, like, it was so unnecessary, like I didn't need to know it. It didn't move the plot forward. It's just like, oh, by the way, I did have a job at a record store.
He's putting in all the Easter eggs and
right.
check them off.
And I'm like, what are we doing? Because I think it's too bad because what I think he does is in this like super slow, contemplative, imaginary city, dream reading, all this sort of stuff. He does like actually force you to think about like, what is our interior self? Why do we imagine things? What does our imagination serve? It's like a real interesting rumination on loneliness and why we pine for other people and what does love mean? Why do we love one person and not another? What is like the soul? What are our spiritual connections really built on? Like all that stuff is really interesting and I want it from my literature and I don't need like crazy pacing, but like it just feels, it feels like I'm not having, I can't access the cool parts of his stuff anymore because I'm so caught up in why is he doing this shit that you don't need to do, Right.
And like, why can't he progress from those like, what's the new thing, right?
Yeah, or I mean, I guess, maybe it's just like he can't imagine a culture without those things. Like, he doesn't know any people who don't cook spaghetti on the only meal that they cook in the book. He doesn't know any people who don't have cats. He doesn't know any people that, don't work at record stores and listen to jazz. Like, or, cause I'm okay with, like, I do want to spend a bunch of time with someone who cares about the coffee that they drink and, leads this really slow life. But I can't access it. The whole time I'm just like laughing. I don't know. It's just, and there's something about, especially with all the repetition, like I read, I sat like at least 5 different like hour-long binges this weekend where I'm like, I'm going to finish this book. And I just read for an hour and it was like, I didn't move through it. And I was like, wait a second. And I still have like 57 pages. I'm like, how can I not be done with this book? So I don't know.
It is like the opposite of.
It just feels like a test.
Experience.
It just feels like a test. It feels like, I don't, and I think he deserves all his flowers. I think he is like a titan of literature, but I feel like he's just descended into self-mockery and I don't know how he's going to escape it. Like, I don't think people can actually seriously even talk about his books anymore because they get so caught up in, can you believe, there's another, naked teenage girl? Like, I don't know. It's almost sad. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to be quick with my next book, The Collaborators by Michael Idov, which basically, like kind of going off what I said about how Fourth Wing sort of ruined me. I was like, okay, I need another like adrenaline rush. So I had this ARC for The Collaborators. The book is out. It came out, I think, in November. And I'd ordered a couple copies because it's like international espionage kind of book. And I thought, I can always sell that.
CIA,
yes.
MI5.
Yep. But anyway, the couple copies I'd brought in the store have just been sitting on the shelf. Because I don't know. I think I had it in the wrong. I had it just in fiction. It really should be in kind of our mystery thriller section.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I wanted a thrill ride, so I picked up the ARC, and it was like a good, quick read. I don't read a ton of espionage thrillers, but I thought this one was pretty good. It's, I often have people come in and being like, yeah, I want international espionage with Russia. And I'm like, okay.
All right.
This one is with Russia. I do feel like I spend a lot of time like rereading sentences, trying to be like, wait, what's the twist? Like, what's happening?
Why is that important?
Why is that important? Do I need to remember this? When I really should just trust a little bit more in the experience and be like, they'll let me know when I need to know these things. But you have this guy who's stationed in Latvia. He's a American CIA agent, and he's supposed to be helping this like Russian blogger who's kind of speaking out against the government. He's like trying to extract him. And in that initial flight out of Russia, like weird things happen. Russia kind of doesn't let the plane, cross the border, lands the plane, the guy gets extracted and gets murdered. But there's another couple on the plane that is involved in some way in the greater plot. And so the American CIA agent is like trying to get answers, starts tracking down this couple, gets paired up with this other American woman who's not at all a spy, but her father is a big billionaire who supposedly committed suicide, but maybe he's alive. So they team up. So yeah, it's whatever. It was just like a solid, if you want a quick, spy thriller.
Yeah.
It's decent.
Yeah.
It's not like the best one I've ever read. It's not the worst.
It's funny because like, I'm not going to get into Trump, but like I saw something like about, they're going to like, a lot of these spies are going to be uncovered or whatever. And it made me think, like, I've read all of these spy novels. Like I watch all the Jason Bourne stuff or whatever. Like I used to be into that. And that it's like, I think about it and like, what is a thing that like a spy did that ever like was a good thing or whatever, like,
I mean, I guess we don't know. That's the point.
I guess we don't know, but it's just, I'm always like, why are all these guys doing all this shit? Like, ultimately it's always like, because they're the bad guy. And I'm always like, well, what if you just like were friends with that guy? Like, why do we have to try to, what are we trying to accomplish here? You know, all these spy novels, I'm always like trying to boil them down. And then I'm like, okay, so you're just trying to kill him because he's trying to kill you. But like, what if we just didn't do that? Like,
what if we didn't do that?
You know, it's like, it never like boils down to anything that I care about. And then I just check out.
That's pretty much the case here, I would say. Yeah.
Like I tried, remember I read that.
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like,
you know,
where I kept rereading to be like, wait, what is actually, like, I don't even understand. Like, it goes back and forth so many times where I'm like, I don't even know whose side is on which side. I'm not sure what is even the good side anymore.
Right. Yeah, why is this the good guy? Yeah, it's like, you know, yeah, we just like, you know, murdered 6 of their dudes. Like, good thing we're the good guys. And I'm like, but we just murdered all those guys, you know?
Yeah. So anyway, that's basically what this is.
The Collaborators.
The Collaborators. We'll keep that one quick.
Yeah, if you want to collaborate, go get that. What's your other quick one?
So The Harder I Fight, The More I Love You.
Oh, the fourth wing was the quick one. This one's substantive. I'm glad we saved this for last.
Yeah.
Do people know who Nico Case is?
I think a lot of people don't. So she's a musician. I think probably best known for she's in the New Pornographers. Yeah, band.
I would say so. And the New Pornographers are an important like Canadian band.
Yes. So she is American, technically. She spent a lot of time in Canada, and she's worked with a lot of Canadian bands.
Oh, she's an actual American. For some reason, I thought she was Canadian. Because the New Pornographers are like, you know, big Toronto, like, you know, scenesters. And like there was a bunch of people who are members or not members or whatever. And they're like a collective. But I always associate them with Toronto.
I believe that is correct. I think most of the members are from Toronto. She grew up in Washington State. And then ended up going to art school in Vancouver. And got hooked up with a bunch of Canadian bands, kind of playing in the punk scene in Vancouver during her college years. And somehow befriended the guys in the New Pornographers.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And then like when she was like hanging out with all these Canadian bands and she's been in a ton of bands. So she started out playing the drums. And then at some point taught herself how to play the tenor guitar and kind of developed her voice so that she also sings. So she started out playing drums in a bunch of different bands and like has toured a ton, just like gotten on the road.
She's been a working musician for like 30 years.
Yes.
And she never she had a couple of like, you know, like I think NPR fell in love with one of her albums.
She's had a bunch of solo albums.
But like she never really like, she probably never made like $1 million, you know.
That's the thing.
You know, very middle class musician.
Exactly. And at the beginning, I would say the first 2/3 of the book are like childhood into late teens, and is not really about her music education or development.
Right.
It's really
it's about her dad, right? Isn't like the first part like about her
mom and her dad. So her parents were quite young when they had her and ill-prepared and uninterested really in having a child. She was mostly, there was a lot of neglect. Like she was just home alone, like roaming, you know, around.
Yeah.
Her mom, I mean, the craziest, and I read about this before I read the book, one of the reviews. So it's, you know, early on, one of the things her mom does in the book when she's like quite little, is she disappears and her dad says, "Oh, your mom died."
Oh, that's right. Yes, I read about this. This is bonkers. Yes.
It's so bonkers. They're like, you know, she's been sick. You just didn't notice.
Right. And they told her she died of cancer, right?
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she didn't actually die.
He was not dead.
That is so messed up.
It's so messed up because the whole family was in on it. Like, there were other members of the family that were like, "Yep, your mom's dead." Mm-hmm.
That's so
bonkers.
Crazy. It's so crazy.
And then, like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years later, it's like, so just kidding. Your mom's not dead. And here she is again. You're going to go, like, spend the summer with her.
Yeah,
and
that is
her new
just
husband.
insane.
It's so messed up. So her mom seems to have, just had some mental health issues.
I mean, clearly. Why? I mean, they couldn't say like she's going to a sanitarium or, she's struggling with mental health or
they don't get into
we're
like
separating
why.
or whatever. Like,
Nope.
It's crazy. They told her she was dead.
I can't even imagine the thought process.
Oh my God. Yeah. Because like multiple people had to think that was a good idea.
I guess. And her dad just seems kind of like a broken man the whole time. Like he raised her, like they lived together throughout her whole childhood. And he just seemed like he was never like clued in. Like he was just very distant, very quiet.
So messed up.
Whatever. So she had and they were living in poverty. They just never had any money.
Right, but but she winds up going to college and stuff. How did she pull out of that?
I don't even know if she got like her GED. She didn't graduate she dropped out of high school. She was a man. So her mom came back into her life. Her dad moved to Alaska. She's now, as a teenager, living with her mom, who is, just totally uninterested and an alcoholic.
Right.
And she emancipates herself when she's 16 or something, 16 or 17. Wow. And then is like still, and there's like, then she moves into an apartment on her own. Like she has no money.
As a 16-year-old.
Yeah. And she's like trying to go to high school and hold a job and like pay for this apartment. And she can't, like she's failing because of course she is. And she has no safety net, right? Like this is what, I was listening to the book and listening to it, I was just like, she's just out there on her own as a teenager.
Oh,
like,
she narrates it or what?
Bonkers. Yeah, she narrates it.
Yeah. This might be one. This might be one you should listen to. Yeah.
I actually was going to say I wish I'd read it because
really?
I think she's a really good writer.
Oh.
And there were lines that she was speaking that I was like, I much rather would have read that because she didn't deliver all of them with the like nuance and the like pause maybe you needed to digest what she was saying. Normally I listen to audiobooks on 1.3. This one I have on 1 because she speaks pretty quickly where you're and sometimes she says stuff in like a super blasé way where you're like, whoa, dude. Or she even kind of like laughs as she says it. And you're like, that is in no way funny.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I do actually think, and normally memoirs read by the author are better for it, but I actually sort of think you might want to read this book.
Interesting.
I think she's like an artist and like the way she describes things, you're just like, no one else can describe it that way but you. And it makes it so interesting and good.
Yeah. I mean, she's a great songwriter. I actually I don't really vibe with her voice that much. So I don't listen to her music that much, but she's one of those artists that like you really respect and, like kind of like Patti Smith or something, where like it's not necessarily my personal taste where I'm going to like put them in playlists and stuff, but like they're clearly doing something important.
And like she is someone who just put in the work and is like kind of this true musician who like music has always moved her and she listens to like a ton of different music all the time. Like she's just like ingesting music constantly. It's not just one style, right? Like she's influenced by country and punk and like international bands and like
she doesn't make popular music because like she's just not she's not going to make like a trendy song. It's just not going to happen really. But she has like every once in a while it's sort of like her tastes line up with the pop culture for a little bit and she has like a little bloom of popularity and then does it get into like the career and stuff or no?
So then she she does community college for a little bit and then ends up kind of like she doesn't get into all the details of things. So then it's like, okay, now she's at this art college in Vancouver.
Yeah. How'd you get
and
there?
then it's like, and now I'm going on tour with these, like, and then I just started playing with some bands and now I'm on tour with these bands. And like, there's one point where she's like, she does get into the music stuff for that last kind of third of the book. And at one point she's like, and then my agent, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you don't see her get an agent.
Yeah. How did you get an agent?
Yeah. Right. It's like, and then I just decided to like make an album. And so I called my buddy, like she just has all these friends. She was like, I called my friend, blah, blah, blah. And I called my friend to play, the guitar and called my, so you're like, I don't know, you
where
sort
you
of
met
see
these
her
people
making friends. Like she's just like, she does talk about kind of being in the scene and constantly going to shows, and she has to rely on her friends because she has no family, right? So she has roommates at various times. People are helping her get jobs. She's making friends on different jobs. Like, so you see her kind of in a scene, but like at the same time, as her career progresses, you're not really seeing her make some of the, like, you're not seeing some of those moments happen. Like, you know, now I'm at the part where she's just like, well, now I had a legit booking agent. And you're like, okay, well, like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, for someone who like is interested in that line of like becoming an artist in the way,
like the business of music,
artist,
which I work in all the time. Yeah.
You don't get a lot of those details. Like,
yeah, I can see an editor being like, you know, no one really cares, you know, that such and such booking agency, you know, asked you for your tour history and or whatever,
right.
You know.
You get, you know, scenes from the road, you get kind of important moments at different shows and with different bands and whatever. And she talks a lot about her love of just like being in a band. Like she's like, I always wanted to be in a band. I didn't want to be like a solo artist. Like she loves being on the road. She loves playing shows, you know, even when she's talking about the like shitty stuff, she's like, I still loved it.
Yeah.
And so I think you as a, you know, a musician who has actually like played a bunch of shows and like done a lot of this stuff, like I think you'd really appreciate what she says. And I think her details are evocative and interesting.
Yeah. No, I want to read it.
I think it's interesting. It's like, it's on the, at least the indie bestseller list, and I've seen it get a ton of attention. So I am interested in the popularity of it and that so many people are interested in her story.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just like, you know, she's been like an NPR personality for kind of a while, and like I think it lines up well with the people who buy and read books, you know, like even if they don't listen to her music, they know who she is. She has good name recognition.
You have this name recognition, and then when you think about it, it's like, but I don't actually know.
Right? Can you sing one of her songs? Like I couldn't sing one of her songs off the top of my head, you know, even though I've known who Nico Case is for a long time, you know.
Yeah. Right.
I couldn't really sing a New Pornographer song, actually.
When you hear like a couple of New Pornographer songs, you're like, oh yeah, those are their songs. Yeah. You know them, but like they don't really come to you off the top of your head. Interesting. All right.
We don't have a 5th birthday party to pimp.
No.
We don't really have any events coming up. Oh, yes, we do. Oh, I almost forgot. We have our Valentine's Day thing at Ipswich Ale Company, don't we?
We do. It's, you know, Wednesday and Thursday of this week. So by the time this comes out,
I'm gonna have to get my act together to have this. We should probably promote it last time.
We should have, yeah.
Okay, well, if I get my act together and get this all edited and posted by Thursday night, we are doing a Valentine's Day fair thingamabobby at Ipswich Ale Company in Ipswich.
It's called True North in Ipswich.
True North is what I meant. Ipswich Ale Company is a different brewery.
Don't go there.
Not the one that this one's at. I just lied about that. True North is where we're going, which is in Ipswich.
Putting together, I believe they're calling it a Galentine's Day event.
Oh, it's for girls?
It is the night before Valentine's Day, which I think is Galentine's Day, which is a celebration of female friendship.
Oh, the 13th is now known as Galentine's Day?
I believe so.
Oh, wow. Did you just make that up?
Details.
No?
I didn't. It's been a thing for a while.
I've never heard of that. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my curation for our table is books kind of focused on female friendship and sisterhood. Okay. In addition to some, you know, other rom-coms and romances. Yeah. Bringing Fourth Wing.
One of my, I really don't like holidays in general. So like I try to wipe them off my calendar, and we got rid of Valentine's Day like 10 years ago, and it was great. Sure. And so now it's not a thing. And so it always amazes to me that like there's still like this like, oh, I have to do something for Valentine's.
I do too, and I'm sorry. I actually feel kind of bad for everyone.
Yeah, like
who still participates.
I don't know
why we're doing this.
It's a bad idea.
But we sell a crap load of cards here in the store, and you know, I guess if you want to celebrate it, go for it. But I find it very painful myself.
Yeah, no, it's not my vibe. All right.
I think Valentine's Day was a response to how painful Valentine's Day is, and this pressure to like, you know, be in a relationship and
I don't know, but doesn't it like make a second pressure? It's like, oh, now I got to get a present.
Now I need friends.
Yeah.
Shit.
Right. That seems even harder. At least I have a wife. Now I got to come up with friends.
I know, seriously. That's, hard and painful for some of us. Thank you very much.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. So no problem. I'll just get my gal pals together for Galentine's Day. No pressure.
Not happening over here.
All right. Well, hopefully all of you had a wonderful Galentine's Day last night, and tonight you'll come and join us at True North for. Oh no, Galentine's is tonight. Whatever.
Just,
You probably won't be listening to this on time anyway, but if so, it's the 13th. That brings us to the end of this podcast. Thank you all very much. See you later.
Bye-bye.